Hi folks, welcome to the weekend. Happy Friday to you. I hope that you've managed to get some good science fiction reading done this week. And on that subject, what have I been reading this week? Let's start with some audiobooks. I've read book 2 and book 3 of the Embers of War trilogy by Gareth Powell. And these are both good, wholesome, sweary space opera fun. The story in book 2 picks up more or less where the last one stopped. And after the ruckus at the end of Embers of War, Dog is getting a refit and permission to tool up, getting back most of her teeth, having started life as a heavily armed battle cruiser. The House of Reclamation, which is like a galactic Red Cross, is trying to adjust to their new reality as junior partner really, to the relics of their long dormant inspiration, the Harthers. And the relics are an outrageously large fleet of heavily armed frigates, the Marble Armada. And most of the book is the House, and by extension Sal and Dog and her crew, trying to carry on their business of saving lives, whilst the Marble Armada take an extremely robust interpretation or approach to preventing war, their stated reason for being. Lots of the action in the second book takes place on an abandoned alien generation ship, upon which the remains of the crew of a damaged smuggler ship have taken refuge. There are nasty, heavily armed crayfish-type aliens which turn out to have a worrying origin. There's the potentially existential threat that the Marble Armada seems to pose. And there are more of the crew interactions, which I enjoyed very much in the first book. And both Sally and Dog develop further as characters. I was particularly taken with Nod in book 2, who is the ship's engineer. And Gareth Powell, I think, has fun with Nod. It's sort of under its breath dialogue, and its new helpers that appear in book 2 are fun. And I enjoyed it, and I went straight on to book 3, Light of Impossible Stars, which I've now also finished just about before recording this video. In Light of Impossible Stars, the Dog, Sal Constance and her rotating crew of misfits take more of a back seat, I think, than they did in the previous books. They're still very much still there, still bagging plenty of point of view chapter airtime. But my sense is that the counterpointing thread gets more time on stage in this book. We're introduced to Cordelia Parr and her brother Michael, who are both scavengers living on an alien relic, which is a series of large, giant, in fact, orbital plates. And it's now home to a fairly large human population in the low millions. Cordelia is plucked from this life by total strangers who claim to work for her father, somewhat to Cordelia's confusion because her father is dead, or so she's always thought. Cordelia, it turns out, has some powers related to the relics, and it's gradually revealed as the book progresses how that came about and what those powers allow her to do. Both plot threads converge towards the end of the book on something called the intrusion, which is a rent, a rift or a portal to another universe through which bad things have come, but also through which good things have fled in the other direction in the past. And there's some link to the Marble Armada, to Cordelia and to her father, and to Sal Constance and the origins of the House of Reclamation. And even Nod, the six-legged engineer, has a revelation to provide. And the plot threads from all 3 books come to a quite a nice crescendo at the end. Overall, I think that the 3 books are a pretty satisfying space opera. There's plenty of bangy, crashy space battles, if that's your thing, but also a nice found family vibe and some real high-stakes peril on both a small and a vast scale. The ship's avatars are fun in much the same way as they are in the culture books, and there's some cosmic mystery to be solved too. And if you read them, I'd be surprised if you don't quickly fall in love with Dog as a character, and Nod, for me, came a close second. I don't possess physical copies of these books. I've just read them or listened to them on audiobooks, but I am left thinking that I might have to track down physical copies because I did enjoy them and to keep them for posterity upon my shelves. And as an extra note, it was suggested to me that I might ping Gareth Powell and see if he fancied a chat. And so, and he was very much up for that. So on Sunday evening, just in a couple of days' time, we are going to speak, and I'll record that obviously, and at some point it will appear as a video for you to watch on my channel. And in physical book, next was Doggerland by Ben Smith. And I've been trying to remember how this book came to my attention. And after a bit of digging, it's revealed that this was amongst the hidden gems which were buried in last year's survey of your top 10 science fiction books, the inaugural SciFiScavenger survey. And one person, in common with the other books in that video, rated this book as their #1 video. So one person gave this a 10 out of 10. And I was intrigued by the premise and nabbed a copy of it to read for myself, and here we are. It's an interesting setting. We're out in the North Sea off the east coast of England, above what at one time in the distant past was a land bridge between England and Northern Europe, known by later historians and the like as Doggerland. And in this setting, in this patch of sea, is an extensive but now rather decrepit wind turbine farm. In the main, this is a two-hander, and the boy and the old man, who are unnamed for most of the book, are a two-person team who are stationed out on the rig, which is a maintenance platform for the farm. And they're responsible for keeping the turbines turning and the electricity flowing off to the mainland. They're both isolated. They're literally in the middle of nowhere in the ocean. And they're like latter-day lighthouse keepers in that respect. They're in each other's orbit, sometimes coinciding for stilted conversation, but they mostly keep themselves to themselves. The boy is there, it quickly transpires, because his father, who did this job before him, reneged on his contract, doing a runner to who knows where. And the boy, being his next of kin, is indentured in his place under the terms of that very contract. And we wonder what sort of world enforces this kind of contract. During the book, we get hints or glimpses, clues as to the state of the wider society back on the mainland and more broadly. The rig is resupplied on an irregular schedule by some kind of electric boat. Food is very basic. The tinned vegetables that they're supplied are actually some unidentified carbohydrate that's pressed into approximately vegetable shapes, and we're led to infer from that vegetables aren't really grown anymore. The suspiciously well-fed man, the pilot, who runs the resupply, is also a trader, a haggler for useful items, things that are now difficult to source, effectively holding the two men hostage to their circumstances. He's after parts, wire, electronics, anything that he can usefully sell on the mainland. And the sea is another big clue as to the state of things. Both the boy and the old man spend quite a bit of time fishing, but both with different objectives in mind. The boy in the forlorn hope that he might catch something that they could eat, and the old man is fishing for junk, for useful flotsam and jetsam, and for relics of the distant past of Doggerland that might be on the seabed. And through their activities, we see that the sea is full of detritus. This is a polluted, dying world, we're led to believe. Some ecological disaster has befallen the planet, or at least this corner of it. There are occasional references to flooding, to coastal incursions and migrations, mirroring the inundation that in prehistoric times flooded Doggerland as was. The old man is exhibiting signs of some kind of mania. He's always checking his nets. And at one point in the book, we see his room on the rig is full of detritus. And he's at one point even seen busy sorting tiny pieces of microplastic in size and colour order and putting them in different receptacles that he's also found in the sea for reasons and with a purpose that are unknown to us. In turn, the boy is obsessed with knowing what happened to his father, with tracking him down if possible, so that they can be together, fulfilling the broken promise that his father made to a young boy some years back. It's a grey, washed-out world. The only colour in their lives really comes from the faded garbage in the sea and the rust on the wind turbines, and an occasional fire as a turbine overheats, and maybe the labels on their tinned food. There are more questions than answers in this book, and maybe that's a little bit frustrating. Arguably, not a lot happens either. Ben Smith gives us what's effectively a slice of life. We see that the boy and the old man about their business, dealing with the weather and the sea and the repairs, and with boredom. We get to see them at one stage play a convoluted and long-running game with seemingly evolving rules that they play on a lopsided pool table with a broken cue and an incomplete set of balls. It's almost all they have. The tone of the book is bleak. It's not quite the road bleak, but it is heading in that direction, I think. Everything is decaying. Entropy is accelerating. The power output from the wind farm is ever decreasing. The turbines are breaking at a faster rate than the two-man team can fix them. And in many cases, they have to cannibalise individual turbines to make their repairs on the others. It's definitely a Sisyphean task, an uphill struggle. And arguably, Ben Smith borrows more than the tone from The Road. There's the boy and the man mirror the two characters in The Road. And we're also left to construct a picture of the wider world and what happened to it through quite a narrow viewfinder, through the perspectives of just the two main characters. Ben Smith's writing is sparse and pared down, quite straightforward to read, and it's a pretty brief book. As regular viewers will know, I'm a sucker for an end-of-the-world tale. And whilst that isn't front and centre in this book, it's very much the backdrop. And particularly through the old man, we get a deep sense of hopelessness and his motivations for staying at his post when he doesn't seem to care anymore about actually keeping the turbines turning are unclear until there's a jarring revelation later on in the book. despite its somewhat apocalyptic and a bleak setting, I found I quite enjoyed it. I liked it. It was good. In a complete change of scene, next up was Wheel Died at Breakaway Station by Richard C. Meredith, and this is a space adventure. And it somewhat confounded my expectations. I knew going in that this was a tale of last-ditch defence of Breakaway Station, and the station is a vital node in Earth's FTL communications network, and the destruction of the station would have serious consequences at what turns out to be a pivotal time in the conflict with the Gillies, the evil aliens of the piece. I was sort of expecting something like Zulu, the movie, but with spaceships, with wave after wave of Gillies attacking and being fended off by the brave humans. But no, it wasn't like that at all, or at least not entirely like that. The setup for this book is that there's been a terrible battle with the Gillies, resulting in much death and destruction. All able-bodied starmen are needed for the fight. And so 3 knackered ships, a hospital ship and 2 heavy cruisers, have been equipped with a skeleton crew of revived humans. They're a muddle of broken people. The skipper of the Iwo Jima, one of the 2 cruisers, has his legs and lower torso replaced by a metal cylinder. His comms officer has a plastic face, and on it goes throughout the rest of the crew too. Their mission is to escort the hospital ship back to Earth, where its cargo of frozen popsicles, 20,000 dead or wounded men and women, can be, hopefully at least, revived and repaired. So the 2 ships and their escort get as far as Breakaway Station pretty early in the book, but find themselves the only means of defence for the station, which has already been badly damaged by a previous Gilly attack, and another is almost certainly on the way. Badly damaged and thinly crewed by broken people, can these 3 ships prevent the station's destruction and keep the humans in the war? It's all pretty stirring stuff. We get some glimpses into life on some of the key planets, or on other battleships caught in other engagements, and on isolated scout ships. Sacrifices are nobly made, mutinies are put down, battles are bravely fought. And it's clear as humans that we're up against it with the Gillies. We get some insight into their physiology, which is both interesting and fairly disgusting. The book was written in the late 1960s, and the style is therefore maybe a little bit dated, but not so that it's problematic in my humble opinion. And the climactic battle is suitably heroic. I had fun with Wheel Died at Breakaway Station. It's a perfectly good start to what I guess will be a long-term reading project for me to read the full set of 25 that there are in this Venture SF series. So that's a pretty good reading week for me. Tell me, what have you read this week? Is there anything that you particularly recommend? If so, do let us know in the comments down below. Just a reminder that there is now some channel merch available, and I'll put the link once again for Chris's store in the description for this video, and you'll find an array of products, including t-shirts like this one, and mugs and fridge magnets and God knows what else, all available with different SciFiScavenger logos on. Channel stuff next then. Subs are at 6,340, which is up 39, I think, on last time. And if you're one of those 39, or if you've stumbled across my channel for the first time today, then a huge welcome to you all. My name is John, and I focus on reading, collecting, and waffling on about science fiction books, old and new. Comment of the week this week was from Paul Sather, I hope I've pronounced that correctly, who's a regular commenter on the channel, and this was in response to a community post that I made last week where I flagged that the Silverberg edited Hall of Fame book, a short story anthology, was next up for me, and that I might not read it all this time around. I might just cherry pick stories. And Paul suggested keeping a note of what I read so that later on I will know which I've not read, avoiding the danger of missing out on what might be great stories. Like Paul, I have quite a lot of anthologies and collections on my shelf. And recently, as it happens, I've taken to simply making a very light pencil mark, a tick, on the contents page to say that I've read a story, and 2 or 3 ticks to show any elevated levels of appreciation for a particular tale. Paul's main advice actually was to read all of the stories in this anthology on the basis that Silverberg won't have included anything duff. Although, having read just the first few stories, let's just say that I'm not 100% convinced by that logic. Thank you to Paul for taking the time to leave a comment, as he often does, and to all of you that do the same. Thank you. I do really appreciate it. Let's take a quick look at what was on the channel in the last week. There was July's wrap-up video, which was actually a bit of a monster at 50 minutes, which is what happens when I get through 15 books in a month, and also when I don't script a video. So it was a bit of a freewheeling look at all of the books that I read during July, but it was pretty good, a bumper month for me. And ultimately, of course, I declared my book of the month, which, if I remember rightly, was Beggars in Spain by Nancy Kress. And that was it. I had half a plan to have something else come out during the week, but that didn't happen. On the book buying front, I think things were modest in this last week. I've had a couple of used bookshop finds from last weekend, nothing terribly exciting, if I'm perfectly honest. But I also received an advanced reading copy of Claire North's new book, Slow Gods, which is a space opera, unusually for her. Generally, her books are fairly earthbound, and that comes out in November, I think, this year. And so I'm very much looking forward to reading that, perhaps a little bit nearer the time. Even more exciting than that, what turned out to be the only missing book in what I'd previously referred to as my complete Pan Lozenge collection, which is The People Trap by Robert Sheckley, was sent to me by Bruce Coulter in Australia. It was very generous of him to part with a book on my behalf at all, and even more so to splash out on the postage from Australia, which is non-trivial from all that way down under. And talking of splashing out, I've spent what's really a lot more than I wanted to in order to secure a mint hardback of an Ian MacDonald book, which I was missing. I do already have a copy of it, but it's a trade paperback, and I really wanted the hardback. The to-be-hauled pile currently stands at just 6 books. Let's take a quick look ahead. On Sunday, I think that there will be that compare and contrast of Annie Bot by Sierra Greer and The Holy Machine by Chris Beckett. They're superficially similar in that they both involve sex bots, but I think quite different in their setting, the protagonists, and most of all the journey, the story arc that the bots of the piece go through. And after that, I have in mind a few videos which will follow on at some point, and there'll be that interview with Gareth Powell, and then I want to get back into the habit of the themed videos. For variety's sake, yes, but also because I enjoy doing them. There's going to be one on queens in science fiction, which is a little bit random. Time travel, I think parallel worlds will feature. There will definitely be one at some point on space opera. That'll probably be quite a long one, covering the full gamut of the 100 years in which that subgenre has existed in one form or another. And then, a bunch of other things too. The only limit really to my ambition there is time, and that has been, at least, in rather limited supply. And may continue to be so for a little while, but watch this space. And of course, there will be August's book haul, which will appear in about 10 days' time, around the middle of the month. What will I be reading in the coming week? I'm about a third of the way through the aforementioned Robert Silverberg edited Science Fiction Hall of Fame. I've read, I think, 4, and I'm about a third of the way through the 5th story. It's quite a long one. I think it's a Theodore Sturgeon. Yeah, Microcosmic God by Theodore Sturgeon. So I've got quite a bit to read of that still. And then we'll see. I think I might pick 1 or 2 from the rest of the book and call it quits for this time around. And then I can pick it up again and read the rest. On audiobook next, having finished Light of Impossible Stars, I'm going to go straight on to Cowl by Neil Asher. I've got quite a long run in the plan tomorrow, so I'll get through a decent chunk. Probably maybe between a third and a half of this tomorrow. It's a thicker book than the Powell books that I read, so it will take a little bit longer to get through, I think. And finally, once I've decided I've had enough of the Silverberg anthology, then I'm going to go on to Grass by Sherry Tepper, which is a pretty well-established classic, and is also on the Broderick and DeFilippo 101 Best Novels list. I might finish that before the end of the week, in which case I'll just pick one of the others that are lurking on my TBR for August. And I'll just decide what takes my fancy there and then. That's everything. As always, thank you for watching. Have a wonderful weekend. And until next time, goodbye for now.